Assalamu alaikum. It is I, Mubaraka. So I'm going to try to push my Insta people back. Instagram. How are you today? So, today I am going to, as we are approaching the new year, I wanted to give you a couple of tips on how to set goals for next year and kind of like what are realistic goals, and we're going to get really specific as to how you measure your progress, health, fitness, weight loss, anything that you're trying to achieve in 2020. So what are we, like a week away from an entirely new decade? I know I keep saying that, but I think that is absolutely a great time to renew, replenish, restore, jumpstart, however you want to look at it. So one of the things that I'm often talking to clients about is goal setting and how important goal setting is. And so I want to get really specific with you as to what are some of the goal setting things that you can aim for in 2020. So hello, Denmark. Thank you for joining me. Mara, I'm glad you joined me. I love the internet. You have so many people from all over the world. It makes the world super small that I can touch everyone. Hey, Insta people, Laura and Samira and the Cupcake Savage. You like cupcakes. I like cupcakes too, so I ain't mad at you. Just because you don't eat them every day doesn't mean you don't love them. I love them. So there's a couple of things that we're going to do. We are going to be very specific about things that you need to do and you need to achieve. So if you have access to a pen, a piece of paper, go and grab it, because we are going to get down to what exactly you need to do, not to compare, to keep up with what the standards of health are, so that you can be healthier, so that you can be more fit. There are standards for that, right? So they've done the research. Hello, Akir. Wa alaikum salam. Erin in Indonesia. I would love to visit Indonesia. Like that, I have not been to the Asian continent at all. Indonesia or Malaysia. I would love to visit one of those places. Bali. Anybody there want to invite me to come speak? I can speak. I can do some training. We can do a boot camp, a fitness class, a retreat. I'm all in. I'm ready. Let's go. Where's my invitation? Okay. So grab your pen and paper, and we're gonna get specific into exactly what we need to do to get fit. So when I meet with clients, one of the first things that I ask them is, what are your goals, right? And more often than I like to hear, I'm often told, I want to get fit. I want to be healthier. And all of that is great, but that's really not a goal. It's an idea, right? So there's a difference between having a goal. A goal has a measurable, specific thing for you to achieve. I want to be fit is not a measurable, specific thing. I want to be healthy is not a measurable, specific thing, right? So you can very easily trick yourself into thinking, oh my gosh, doing all of this exercise isn't even, I'm not even getting any results because I am not losing the amount of weight that I want to lose, which often people have a realistic idea of what that is too, and we'll talk about that. So the first thing that you need to do when you are setting your goals is you need to be very specific as to what that idea of fitness, of health, of if you want to make more money, if you want to have a successful business. All of those are great ideas, but they need to be measurable and specific. So if you say, I want to be healthy, what do you want to achieve specifically that you don't have right now? Do you want to get your cholesterol down by a certain amount of points? Do you want to have your doctor say you are no longer pre-diabetic? Would you like to be able to say, I don't take high blood pressure medicine anymore? Like, what does being healthy specifically means, right? So that's really important. You have to be really specific. If you say, hey, I want to be fit or I want to be fitter, what does that specifically mean to you? Because it can mean something different to every single person. For somebody who is a former athlete and they used to run cross-country track, being fit to them could mean, hey, I want to be able to run a 6-minute mile again. But for somebody who is a mom of 2 little kids, and at the end of the day, after taking the kids to the park, she falls asleep before they do. Fit to her may mean, hey, I just want to have more energy than my kids so that they don't wear me out, right? Both of those are absolutely great ideas of what you want, if that's what you want. And they are both definitely doable, but you have to be very specific. Why? Because you need to know that you are achieving that specific thing, right? Same thing when it comes to money. Hey, I want a successful business. What does that mean to you? Does that mean that your product will be in 10 stores? Does that mean it'll be in 20 stores? Does that mean that, Apple will come and give you a deal for buying your app? Like, what does a successful business mean to you? So the first thing when it comes to goals is you need to be very specific. But you also need to be very realistic. So what does that mean? Like, what does healthy mean? So I'm going to give you a few stats. So according to, when we talk about health, right, we are talking about what is not just the absence of disease, but the presence of vitality. So this is really important. Health is not just the absence of disease. It is the presence of vitality, right? Because somebody can be on the books quite healthy, right? They're at their proper BMI, they don't have high blood pressure, they don't have heart disease, but they're exhausted all the time. They can't bicep curl 5 pounds. They get tired if they walk 2 blocks, right? And that's just can be from being out of shape. So health is not just the absence of disease, it's the presence of vitality, right? You have energy, you have function, you can do all of those things together. So when we talk about what those things are, how do we measure them? I tell my client, I just had this conversation with a client yesterday, you should have, no matter what your goal is, you should have 3 ways to measure it. 3 specific different things that are non-related to one another that's going to measure where your goals are. So when we talk about weight, for instance, right? We don't want to just obsess with the scale and what the scale is telling us. You want to be able to measure, because your weight is a combination of a lot of different things. It's not just what the scale says. It's how much fat you have versus muscle. Where's your weight distributed, right? That is also a really big indicator of health. We know that when you are a person that has a lot of weight inside of your abdominal area, your stomach, which is called visceral fat. So if you ever hear that term, visceral fat is the fat in your abdominal. And visceral fat is what we call alive. We say it is the fat that is alive because it's the only fat in your body that actually produces hormones. Your belly fat produces estrogen. One of the things that happen to women as we get older is when you stop producing estrogen from your ovaries, so when you start going into menopause, the first thing that will happen is you'll start gaining belly fat. And it's really your body trying to help you out, but it really is not helping you out in the way that you'd like to get helped out. It's kind of like when your 3-year-old wants to help you fold clothes and it really looks like balling them up and throw them in the corner. It's like, yeah, I know you're trying to help him, but that's not really helping. So when you go through menopause and your body stops producing estrogen from your internal reproductive system, your body actually will intentionally try to add belly fat in order for it to compensate and produce estrogen for your body. That's a little side note for you to know. Doesn't mean that you can't lose your belly after you've hit menopause. It just means you might have to work a little bit harder. But that's okay. Everybody and everybody's genetics is very different. Some of us have to work harder than others. Some people are older have to work harder than younger people. We're used to that by now. So when it comes to weight, so let's go through kind of like different levels of health and fitness and what you need to achieve. So when it comes to weight, you should look at your BMI, the body mass index. One of the things that people is a kind of like a myth, I call it an urban legend, is that, body mass index does not apply to everybody. It was based on white people. It doesn't apply to black people. It don't apply to Hispanic people. It don't apply to Mexican people. That is not true. What is true, that it was initially created by looking at white men. So I will tell you that. So the way the body mass index was created, it was actually created by insurance agencies, not by doctors. The insurance agencies wanted to know, let's see what we can look at to determine if people are going to be more likely to develop disease and if they were going to die early. Because obviously, if we insure people that are unhealthy and they're going to die, we're going to have to pay money out. So they was looking for at their bottom line pocket, but it ended up benefiting all of us in the end. And so in the 1970s, they looked at people who were insured in their weight and their height. Why was it mostly based on white men in America? Is because during the 1970s, most of the people who had life insurance were middle-aged white men. And so that was the majority of the study. But what they found was that if they had, for each height, there was kind of like a range of weight. And the higher you were on that weight scale, the more likely you were to develop diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, and the more likely you were to die, to increase your mortality rate. Now, what we know is that when you have a higher BMI, then you are more likely to develop these diseases. And you're more likely to develop these diseases. And when you develop these diseases, that BMI scale is between 15 and 25, right? So if somebody tells you, well, you should weigh 130 pounds, like I don't care even if your doctor tells you this, you should weigh 130 pounds. That 130 pounds, there is no one perfect weight for your height. There should be a range. It's probably about 20-25 pound range that you can be on the lower end or you can be on the higher end. Your BMI is very easily, you're very easily able to tell it. You can just Google it everywhere. What they found over the year is that the BMI scale actually does apply to 90% of the world's population. They can look at your height and we can look at your weight and see the correlation between that and the development of disease. We can see that in the development of things that increase your mortality rate, right? So it does, here's the interesting thing, is that it does vary for different ethnicities. So we know that people of East Asian descent, so Pakistani, Indian, if you're listening, this is really important. BMI for Pakistani and Indian cultures, actually not cultures, but ethnicities, Pakistani and Indian ethnicities, they found during research that you actually have a lower BMI before you start developing disease. So whereas other nationalities, their BMI, where they start developing high blood pressure or heart disease at 25 on the BMI scale, for people of East Asian descent is actually 22. So there's actually a smaller range of being overweight. This is attributed to one of the factors as to why so many people of East Asian descent actually have diabetes. It is an epidemic within that culture and in that ethnicity. So because as the weight goes up for people, it is actually increasing all of those risks of those health diseases. So remember, for your BMI scale, you want to stay within the healthy range, which is 15 to 25, right? If you are of East Asian descent, Pakistani, Indian, you want to stay between 15 and 22%. So you can write that down as a goal. Find out what your BMI is and then try to get it down within the healthy range. Your BMI is directly related to your weight, to what the scale says. Every time the scale goes down, your BMI will go down. Every time the scale goes up, your BMI will go up. So monitoring your weight is monitoring your BMI. So that's one determiner of health when we talk about weight. A second determiner of health is your body fat versus your body muscle, right? So what's really important is that your body fat percentage is completely unrelated to what the scale says. You can be healthy weight and a healthy BMI on the scale, but when you do your body fat percentage, if your body fat percentage is over 30%, then you too are at risk for disease, high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes. 30% is where you want to stay. For informational purposes, if you really are looking like, what do I need to be considered healthy? What do I need to be considered athletic? What is like a dangerous area? Anything that is under 13% body fat is considered anorexia. You do not want to go under 13%. 13%, you start losing your hair, your nails become brittle, you start losing bone density, you actually start missing your period. Less than 13%, your body does not have enough fat for your normal female functions, reproductive functions, bone mass, all of that other stuff. So never is your goal to be 10%. Men, on the other hand, can get as low as 4% before they start to experience any adverse health effects. So men have the ability to go really, really low on their body fat. Men can be as low as 4. Women should never be under 13%. Athletic range is anything within the teens. So, for example, female Olympic athletes are often somewhere between 18 and 22% body fat. That is considered very, very athletic, right? Then 22 is considered quote unquote ideal. I don't like that idea, but ideal is 22%. And then as you get older, your body fat increases and you can range in that 20s up to you get about 30% body fat. Once you see that you've hit 30% body fat, you need to actively try to decrease your body fat because now you're starting to be at risk for diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease. We call that the triad of diseases, right? You want to make sure that over 30% that you're really trying. Now, for a guy, if you are over about 20%, 22%, you need to actively try to reduce your body fat because now you're putting yourself at risk. There are lots of people who are healthy on the BMI scale, but they are unhealthy on the body fat scale. We call them skinny fries. Those are the people who are super thin. By society standards, they look good, but they never exercise, they eat crap, they don't move, so they're unhealthy because even though the scale says they're a healthy range, they're actually too high on body fat. So that is another way of looking at it. So Nazir says, is Lizzo fit? Ha! Fit, we talked about at the beginning. It depends on what her definition of fit is. Okay, so again, when you talk about what fit and what healthy is, I want to give you very specific things. Fit is according to your definition, just make it specific. Now we're talking about what actually takes you out of health risk. Okay, so we talked about weight, we talked about BMI, body fat. The other thing that you can go with is your waist to hip ratio. So African Americans, women want to definitely pay attention to the next couple of minutes. When we look at waist to hip ratio, that is literally taking a measuring tape. And again, you could just Google this stuff and a calculator will pull up for you online. If you measure your waist at your belly button, you measure your hips at the widest point, you divide your waist into your hip for women. If you come out with a number that's higher than 0.8, then it puts you at risk for those triad of diseases. For men, if you come out with a number that's higher than 1.0, then it puts you at risk for those triad of diseases. Meaning, for a guy, if your waist is a 40 and for guys and women, if your waist is a 40 and your hips is a 40, then that's a 1, don't gain another inch. For a woman, if your waist is a 40 and your hips is a 40, you need to reduce your belly fat. You need to reduce your waist size because now you are putting yourself at risk. And again, waist to hip ratio is not related to body fat percentage. It is not related to scale or BMI. These are 3 individual different ways of measuring your health risk by themselves, right? Is there truth to the golden ratio? The golden ratio is based on the European idea of what beauty should look like. So that is not related to health. So not really. I guess to Europeans who want to determine what's beautiful to them, it would be some truth to it, but it has nothing to do with health. When we talk about, so I said that the waist to hip ratio was really important to African American women because when they looked at, so there's a research study and they looked at BMI, body fat, and waist to hip ratio, and they found that waist to hip ratio specifically for women of African descent was more accurate of determining health risks than BMI or body fat. So when we're talking about what you need to be measuring to know that you are healthy, right? Which is different than being fit, which is different than a specific weight, which is different than a specific size. If you want to take yourself out of health risk, then that is what you need to be aiming for, okay? So those are 3 ways to talk about what is your risk of health. So what about what is fit? And like I said earlier, one of the things that about determining what a fitness level is for you is what specifically you want to achieve, right? So for example, at some point, probably, I don't know, 5 years ago or so, for me, I wanted to be able to run a 5K, which is 3.1 mile, in less than 30 minutes. That was my initial idea of what in my mind, when I wanted to feel fit, what did I want to be able to do in order for me to say, my definition of fitness is me being able to run a 5K in less than 30 minutes, right? I was able to do that, but then I needed to set a new goal. And if you don't know, I'm 43. But when I turned 40, I was like insistent, like I want 40 to be like the best year for me ever. And so what I decided to do is I literally looked up the United States military standards for physical fitness for my age, and it gave me how if I wanted to, I had no intentions and have no intentions of joining the United States Army, but if I wanted to, how fast would I have to run? How many push-ups would I have to do? What would be the requirements in order for me to be quote unquote Army fit? And so before my 40th birthday, that was specifically my goal. I wanted to be able to do all of those things, and that was at that time my definition of fitness. And I was able to achieve that, alhamdulillah, with a lot of hard work and practice and running and working out consistently. For my 40th birthday, I was Army fit. So fitness is really about you determining what you want to achieve. It's a completely personal and subjective thing, right? So if fitness to you is, hey, I I want to be able to do 50 military push-ups in 60 seconds, then it's certainly possible. You just make a plan to achieve that specific thing. And one of the other things about that is kind of like a standard of fitness is about 3 years ago, the United States Surgeon General, yes, President Obama was president about 3 years ago. 3 years ago, the United States Surgeon General put out a guideline that a healthy adult should be able to complete 1 mile in 15 minutes. So if you're wondering okay, what is going to make me heart healthy, right? Because we know that fitness has a lot of aspects. It has strength, but it also has to do with you being able to have the capacity for your heart to beat fast and strong and circulate your blood well. Well, according to United States Surgeon General, that is a 15-minute mile. It does not matter if you practice that mile walking down the street, if you practice it on a track, or if you practice it on a treadmill. It doesn't matter if you do it walking, speed walking. It doesn't matter if you do it jogging. It doesn't matter if you do it in interval training. As long as you can complete 1 mile in length, right, in distance, within 15 minutes, then that is a good level of cardiovascular fitness. So if you need to set a goal for yourself as far as you're running or you're walking, that would be a goal. When we talk about increasing our fitness level, if you've listened to me for any time, you know I absolutely love TED Talks, right? So there is a great TED Talk by a researcher, and I can't remember his name right now, but the talk is called, I believe it's called Run But Not Too Fast. And what he presented in his TED Talk, which was very, very fascinating, was, is there a such thing as too much exercise, right? And they actually looked at runners. And what they found was that after a certain speed and a certain distance, you actually start to reverse the health benefits of exercise. So instead of you decreasing inflammation, you actually start to increase inflammation. It was a full bell curve, right? So what did they determine was kind of like the ideal amount of speed and time? So what they found was, if you can run a 10-minute mile, that is ideal. Running faster than 10 minutes, again, fitness is about your own personal desires or how you want it to do, but running faster than a 10-minute mile did not increase health benefits. Now, if you want to think about distance, they also found that running more than about 5 miles at a time, 5 miles consecutively, also did not increase health benefits. In fact, it began to decrease the health benefits. So they looked at people who were ultra marathoners, people that ran 10, 15, 20 miles at a time, and they found that they actually had a lot of inflammation in their arteries, that the longer the distance, it actually increased the inflammation and it decreased the health benefits of actually exercising. So does that mean that you should never ever do a marathon? No, it doesn't mean you should never ever do a marathon. It does mean that if you're trying to do consecutive marathons for health reasons, you're not achieving what you think you are achieving, right? So if you love marathons and you do them all the time and you want to continue to do them, more power to you if you have a physical ability to do it. But when we talk about health, it is not an increase in health benefits because you can do a marathon every month versus you just going out and running 3 miles a day. So that's really important to note. So again, I believe that TED Talk is called Run But Not Too Fast. Definitely recommend that you watch it. So we talk about fitness level. We talk about different ways of measuring your weight. What else? If you got any questions, let me know. I think that those are the main things. Oh, strength level. There's no research that says like being able to lift this amount of weight will make you healthier. So strength doesn't really work the same way that the test for cardiovascular fitness works. Fitness in hijab on Instagram, yes, 1 mile in 15 minutes. According to the United States Surgeon General, that is heart healthy when you can do 1 mile in 15 minutes. Nazir says, yes, my warm-up is 10 minutes, 1.2 miles. Hate running, but glad I'm getting the max benefit. Good. And I felt it, okay, I felt it wasn't enough, not Spartan the Tough Mudder, but... oh, good. Good. Alhamdulillah. Yes, look for that TED Talk. This is an excellent TED Talk. He presents all of the research on the screen, and he talks about exactly what they found in terms of how fast and how often you should run. When you, so for strength, again, there's really no kind of like, you should be this strong or be able to do this thing for strength. What I do want to say about strength is just be aware that one of the physiological differences between women and men is that men have stronger upper bodies relative to their lower bodies, and women have stronger lower bodies relative to our upper bodies. So it's very common for a woman not to have enough strength to do a military push-up unless she's actively strength training. It's funny because one of the things that we talk about a lot is like, it's leg day, never let your buddy skip leg day. That is actually a saying that came out of the bodybuilding community because men valued and liked to show off how strong their legs were because it's not their forte. So women, on the other hand, and I say this for women in particular, because one of the mistakes, the most common mistakes that I see women making when it comes to strength training is just because they can only bicep curl 8 pounds, they grab 2 8-pound weights and they go squat and lunge with that. What you can bicep curl, what you can chest press has absolutely nothing to do with how strong your legs are. So test your leg strength separate from your upper body strength. This is why I also like separating leg day from upper body day so that you can go heavier on the weights with your legs, right? Oftentimes when I was teaching indoor boot camp, if I saw someone inside of the group that I knew that she was limiting her mind as to how much what she could lift, I would give her a weight and tell her, don't look at it. Don't look at how much weight it is. Let's just see if you can do it. Because when you're lifting weight, either you're going to lift it or you're not going to lift it, right? If you can't lift 80 pounds, if somebody gives you an 80-pound weight, you're not moving it nowhere. So don't worry about the weight. Lift until you can't lift anymore. Nazir said, 10-day water fast, is it healthy or not? I'm considering it as a detox and a discipline test. So is it healthy? It depends on what you want to achieve. So when we talk about fasting, if your goal is detox, then 3 days is sufficient. So detox on a cellular level is called autophagy. Is when your cells literally turn over when they do the 3 R's. They repair, they recycle, and they reuse themselves. And autophagy peaks at 3 days. So doing it for 10 days for the purposes of detox is really not going to give you more autophagy. Obviously, you'll be in I didn't even know if autophagic is a word, but it's my Jesse Jackson word for today. You'll be in an autophagic state for longer. We have this thing in our house, we call it like, you can make up any word that you want as long as you precursor it by saying it's a Jesse Jackson word. That way everybody know that you're completely aware that you're making it up. So my Jesse Jackson word of the day is autophagic. You will be in an autophagic state for longer, but it will not increase the amount of autophagy that is happening in your body. If you want to do it for discipline, then that's great. But 3 days is pretty much the peak of autophagy. And yes, a 10-day water fast will definitely put you deep into ketosis, for real. I think that is all. So we talked about strength. We talked about upper body stuff. We talked about lower body stuff. We talked about not limiting yourself, that there's no kind of like level of physical fitness for. And I want to say too is when we talk about just functional strength for people, what I like to remind people, particularly females, particularly women, is that you do want to lift heavier and lift stronger. So for example, a gallon of milk weighs 8 pounds, a gallon of water, milk. So if you want to maintain the physical ability to just do things like put away your groceries, put stuff on the top shelf, do stuff like that, then you should be trying to lift heavier, right? So if you're bringing in a bag of groceries weighs about 20, 25 pounds if you're filling a bag of groceries up. So make sure that when you are doing your lifting that you aren't limiting yourself, so that you can develop what would be functional strength, right? So you can do things like put your groceries away or things like that. The last thing that I wanted to share is I was listening to a podcast the other day, and I can't remember which one it was, but the gentleman made a really good point, which I think that after I achieve some of my immediate fitness goals that I have for myself, that as a maintenance, I think that it's a really good idea. He was a former competitive athlete. And now that he's no longer competing, he said that he had to give himself kind of like functional goals is what he wanted to do with his strength. And so what he decided to do is he took about, I think he said he had 15 things that he thought about that in his mind he would like to live to be 100. But not just live to be 100, but also be able to function and have vitality and health at 100. So what would be the things that he needs to do at 100 in order for him to enjoy his life? So one of the things that he mentioned is he said he enjoys swimming and he wanted to be able to continue that for the duration of the rest of his life. So in order for him to maintain the strength of doing that, he wants to be able to push himself out of a swimming pool unsupported, right? And so that is dips and push-ups. And so he practices strengthening of his shoulders and his arms so that he can always have the ability to bring himself out of the pool unassisted. Great idea. He also noted that right now he has small children who are like 4 and 6 years old, and he often gets on the floor to play with them because he recognized for children, you have to come down to their level. So when he gets older, he's going to have grandchildren, and he wants to continue to have the ability to play on the floor. So having the ability to get up and down on the floor is really important for him, something that he will, a skill that he will need in the future by the time he has grandchildren, right? So if his kids are like 4 and 6, he needs to maintain that amount of flexibility and mobility for the next 20 or 30 years. So that's something that he practices. So, and the third thing that I remember, he mentioned of several things, but the third thing, which I think was really good, is he said that he lived in New York. And he loved living in New York, and he wanted to stay there, and he lived on like the 10th floor, and there's no elevator. And he wanted to have the ability to be able to take 2 bags of groceries up 10 flights of stairs. His grocery bags weigh about 30 pounds, so he knows that he has to have enough upper body strength to really carry 30 pounds for a longer distance and upstairs. And so those are things that he practiced. So if you are not an athlete, you have no, aspiration to marathon or do a Spartan race or Tough Mudder or do an Ironman, that's absolutely fine. Not for everyone. Think of functional things that you need to do in order to not just live your life, but enjoy your life, right? To be independent, to also be able to maybe help others. What is the strength level and the fitness level you need for that? And you can set that as a goal as well. All right, so that is our live for today. What is fitness? If you have any questions or have any suggestions as to what you would like our lives to be for the duration of the month, which is like 6 days left? Oh my goodness. Go ahead and put it in the comments. Go ahead and send me a DM. I would love to talk about it and answer your questions, but it is Maghrib time here, so I'm out. All right, I'll talk to you tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum.